The frozen heart. Vincent Kane stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars beneath the darkening sky. His reflection stared back at him, a man of with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes that had built an empire but destroyed everything that truly mattered. The Kane Industries logo gleamed behind him in polished steel, a testament to his success and a monument to his failures. 6 years, 6 long years since he had truly looked at his wife, really seen her, spoken to her as anything more than a polite stranger sharing the same address. Natalie Kane, née Rivers, had once been the brightest light in his world, her laughter filling their penthouse with warmth that no amount of money could buy. Now, their home felt like a mausoleum, beautiful and cold, where two people moved through, their daily routines like ghosts haunting the same space. The buzzing of his phone interrupted his brooding. His assistant's voice crackled through the speaker. "Mr. Kane, your car is ready. Shall I tell them you're heading home?" Home. The word felt foreign on his tongue. "Yes, thank you, Rebecca." The drive through Manhattan's evening traffic gave him time to think, something he rarely allowed himself to do. Tonight was different, though. Tonight marked their 7th wedding anniversary, a date that had passed unacknowledged for the past 3 years. He wondered if Natalie even remembered, or if she had learned to forget just as he had taught himself to ignore the growing chasm between them. The penthouse elevator climbed silently to the top floor, each number flashing by like years of their marriage. When the doors opened, he stepped into the marble foyer where fresh flowers stood in crystal vases, arranged by their housekeeper. Natalie had always loved flowers, especially the white roses that now seemed to mock him with their perfect, untouchable beauty. She was in the kitchen, and for a moment, Vincent felt his breath catch. Even after all these years, even with the wall of ice that had grown between them, Natalie was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and she wore a simple cream-colored dress that hugged her figure in all the right places. She was preparing dinner, moving with the same graceful efficiency that had first captivated him during their college days. "You're home early," she said, without turning around, her voice carefully neutral. It was the tone she reserved for him, now, polite but distant, like speaking to a business associate, rather than the man she had once promised to love forever. Traffic was light. He loosened his tie, watching her delicate hands as she chopped vegetables with practiced precision. "Smells good, it's just pasta." She finally turned to face him, and he saw the careful mask she wore, the one that hid whatever emotions might still exist beneath the surface. Her green eyes, which had once sparkled with mischief and loved, now regarded him with the cool professionalism of a stranger. They ate dinner in their usual silence, the dining room table seeming to stretch for miles between them despite its modest size 4'2". Vincent found himself studying her face, looking for traces of the woman who had once laughed at his terrible jokes and fallen asleep in his arms during late-night movie marathons. She was still there, he realized, buried beneath layers of hurt and neglect that he had piled upon her with his relentless focus on building his business empire. "I have a conference call with Tokyo in an hour," he said, more to fill the silence than from any need to explain his evening plans. "Of course you do." The slight edge in her voice was the first real emotion she had shown all evening. "It's only 9 o'clock here, but business never sleeps, right?" He looked up sharply, catching something in her tone that he hadn't heard in years. Frustration, perhaps even anger. For some reason, it thrilled him. Emotion, any emotion, was better than the Arctic indifference that had become their normal state. "Natalie," he started to speak, then stopped, unsure what he had intended to say. What could he say? That he was sorry for letting their marriage die a slow death, that he missed her laugh, her smile, the way she used to curl up against him while reading, that he had noticed how she flinched slightly whenever he accidentally touched her hand passing the salt. She stood up, beginning to clear the plates. "Don't, Vincent. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. We've managed this arrangement for 6 years without unnecessary complications. Let's not start adding them now." Arrangement. The word hit him like a physical blow. Was that what their marriage had become? A convenient arrangement between two people who happened to share a last name and a mailing address. He watched her move around the kitchen, noting the way she kept her distance from him, how she had perfected the art of being in the same room while remaining completely unreachable. When had he stopped trying to bridge the gap? When had he accepted that this cold, polite existence was enough? His phone rang, the sound cutting through the tension like a knife. Tokyo calling, right on schedule. He looked at the screen, then at his wife, who was loading the dishwasher with mechanical precision. "Vincent Kane," he answered, his voice automatically shifting into business mode. "Mr. Kane, we have some concerns about the merger proposal, ... The voice on the other end launched into a detailed discussion of quarterly projections and market analysis, but Vincent found his attention drifting. He was watching Natalie, really watching her, and what he saw made his chest tighten with an unfamiliar ache. She looked tired, he realized. Not just physically tired, but soul-deep weary, like someone who had been carrying a heavy burden for too long. There were faint lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 6 years ago, and her shoulders had a defeated slump that spoke of dreams deferred and hopes abandoned. When had she stopped waiting for him to remember that she existed? When had she given up on the possibility that their marriage might still be salvaged? "Mr. Kane, are you there?" The voice from Tokyo sounded impatient. Double quotes. "Yes, I'm here. Listen, can we reschedule this call? Something important has come up." After ending the call, he found the apartment empty except for the sound of running water from the master bathroom. Natalie was taking her evening bath, a ritual she had maintained throughout their marriage. He remembered how she used to invite him to join her, how they would talk and laugh until the water grew cold. Now, the closed bathroom door might as well have been a fortress wall. Vincent walked to his study, but instead of reviewing contracts or answering emails, he found himself looking at the framed photograph on his desk. It was from their wedding day, both of them glowing with happiness and promise. Natalie's smile was radiant, her eyes shining with love and trust. He looked younger too, softer somehow, as if success hadn't yet hardened him into the cold, calculating machine he had become. Tomorrow, he decided, would be different. Tomorrow he would begin the most important battle of his life, the battle to win back his wife's heart. The morning sun streamed through the penthouse windows as Vincent Kane sat at his mahogany desk, staring at a piece of paper that had arrived with the morning mail. His hands trembled slightly as he read the elegant script across the top. Divorce papers, initial consultation. The document was addressed to Natalie, and it had been delivered by mistake to his home office instead of her private study. Vincent's world tilted on its axis. The coffee mug in his hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy, and he set it down with shaking fingers. Divorce, the word echoed in his mind like a death sentence. After 6 years of living like polite strangers, Natalie had finally decided to make their separation official. He heard her footsteps in the hallway, the soft click of her heels against the marble floor as she prepared to leave for her morning yoga class. This had become her routine over the past 2 years: yoga, then lunch with friends he had never met, followed by volunteer work at the children's hospital where she had once dreamed of working as a pediatric nurse before their marriage had consumed her ambitions. "Natalie," he called out, his voice rougher than intended. She appeared in the doorway, dressed in form-fitting athletic wear that reminded him painfully of the woman she had been when they first met. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup, looking younger and more vulnerable than the polished society wife she had become. Yes, her tone was cautious, probably wondering why he was still home instead of already buried in his office downtown. He held up the paper, watching as recognition and then panic flashed across her face. "This came for you." The color drained from her cheeks, but she lifted her chin with a dignity that made his heart ache. "I see you opened my mail. It was addressed incorrectly. I thought it was business correspondence." He stood slowly, the paper still in his hand like evidence of his failures. "Natalie, we need to talk." "No, we don't." She stepped into the room, snatching the document from his fingers. "This is my decision. Vincent, you don't get a vote, don't I?" The question came out sharper than he intended. Years of suppressed emotion finally breaking through his carefully constructed walls. "We're married, Natalie. That still means something." She laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Does it? When was the last time you remembered our anniversary? When did you last ask me how my day was and actually wait for an answer? When did you last touch me without it being an accident while reaching for the salt?" Each question hit him like a physical blow because he couldn't answer any of them. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. He had taken her for granted so completely that he had forgotten she was a living, breathing woman with needs and dreams and desires. "I know I've been distant," he began, but she cut him off with a wave of her hand. Distant, her voice rose, and he realized it was the first time in years he had heard genuine passion from her, even if it was anger. "Vincent, we haven't had a real conversation in 3 years. We haven't made love in longer than that. We don't even argue anymore because that would require you to care enough to fight with me." The words made love hung in the air between them, and Vincent felt something twist painfully in his chest. He remembered their early years together, how they couldn't keep their hands off each other, how making love had been as natural as breathing. Now, they slept on opposite sides of their king-sized bed, careful not to accidentally touch even while unconscious. "I built all of this for us," he said desperately, gesturing at the luxury surrounding them. "The company, this apartment, houses in the Hamptons and Aspen. Everything I did was to give you the life you deserved. I never asked for any of this." The words exploded from her with such force that he stepped back in surprise. "I wanted you, Vincent. Just you. I would have been happy in a tiny apartment eating ramen noodles if it meant having the man I married. Not this cold stranger who writes checks but never writes love letters." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, and Vincent felt his own eyes burning. When was the last time he had seen her cry? When was the last time he had cared enough to notice? "I remember when you used to bring me coffee in bed," she continued, her voice breaking. "You would sing off-key in the shower, and I would laugh until my sides hurt. You used to leave little notes in my textbooks telling me how proud you were of me. You made me feel like I was the most important thing in your world." "You were," he whispered, the admission torn from somewhere deep inside him. "You still are." "No, I'm not." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and he saw her pulling that familiar mask back into place. "Your company is the most important thing. Your deals, your mergers, your board meetings. I'm just the accessory wife who looks good at charity galas and doesn't complain when you miss dinner for the 5th night in a row." Vincent took a step toward her, then stopped when she moved back. The distance between them felt like an ocean, and he didn't know how to swim across it. "What if I changed?" The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise her. "What if I made you my priority again?" She stared at him for a long moment, and he saw something flicker in her green eyes. Hope or just pity for the man who had once been capable of love. "You can't change, Vincent. This is who you are now. This is who you chose to become." She folded the divorce papers and tucked them into her purse. "I have a yoga class to get to. Natalie, please." She paused at the doorway without turning around. "I'll be staying at my sister's apartment for a while. I think we both need some space to figure out what comes next." The sound of the front door closing echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Vincent stood alone in his study, surrounded by the symbols of his success awards. Photographs with important people, expensive artwork, and for the first time in years, he saw them for what they really were: cold, meaningless objects that couldn't love him back. He walked to the window and looked down at the street 42 floors below. Somewhere down there, Natalie was walking away from him, possibly forever. The woman who had once loved him enough to give up her own dreams was finally choosing herself, and he couldn't blame her for it. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant, "Mr. Kane, the board meeting has been moved up to 10 a.m. The Peterson deal needs your immediate attention." Vincent stared at the message, then did something he had never done in his entire career. He turned off his phone and walked away. The Peterson deal could wait. The board could manage without him for one day. For the first time in 6 years, Vincent Kane had something more important to do than make money. He had a wife to win back, and he was finally awake enough to realize that without her, all his success meant absolutely nothing. The battle for love 3 weeks had passed since Natalie moved out, and Vincent Kane felt like a man learning to breathe underwater. The penthouse, once a symbol of his achievements, now felt like a mausoleum where every corner held memories of what he had lost. He had cancelled meetings, delegated responsibilities, and for the first time in his career, put his personal life before business. His assistant Rebecca had looked at him like he had grown a second head when he told her to clear his schedule for personal matters. Vincent stood outside Natalie's sister Emma's brownstone in Brooklyn, holding a bouquet of white roses, not the expensive, perfect ones from the florist downtown, but simple ones he had picked from the community garden where Natalie used to volunteer before their marriage consumed her time. His hands were sweating despite the cool autumn air, and he felt more nervous than he had during his first board presentation. Emma answered the door, her expression shifting from surprise to barely concealed hostility when she saw him. "Vincent, what are you doing here? I need to see my wife." The words came out more desperate than he intended, and he cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. "Please, Emma, just 5 minutes. Your wife." Emma crossed her arms, blocking the doorway. Funny how she only became your wife again after she filed for divorce. For the past 6 years, she's been more like your roommate who occasionally appeared at company functions. The truth in her words stung, but Vincent had learned to accept painful truths over the past few weeks. "You're right, I've been a terrible husband, but I'm here now, and I'm not giving up without a fight." Emma studied his face for a long moment, perhaps seeing something there that convinced her of his sincerity. "She's not here anyway. She's at the Children's Hospital, Ward 7. Pediatric oncology. She's been volunteering there every day since she left you. Vincent felt his heart clench. Pediatric oncology. Natalie had always had a special place in her heart for sick children. Having lost her younger brother to leukemia when she was 18, it was one of the reasons she had wanted to become a pediatric nurse. A dream she had abandoned when their whirlwind romance led to marriage and his insistence that she didn't need to work. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and hope, a combination that made Vincent's stomach turn. He had always avoided hospitals, associating them with weakness and mortality, concepts that didn't fit into his carefully controlled world. But as he walked through the corridors, following the signs to Ward 7, he realized how much of life he had been avoiding in his pursuit of success. He found her in the playroom, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a little girl who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. The child was bald from chemotherapy, but her eyes sparkled with delight as Natalie painted intricate designs on her small fingernails. Natalie's face was animated in a way Vincent hadn't seen in years, her smile genuine and warm as she listened to the little girl chatter about her favorite princess. And then Cinderella danced with the prince all night long, the little girl was saying, and they lived happily ever after, just like in all the best stories. That's right, Sophie, Natalie said, carefully applying tiny rhinestones to the girl's pinky nail. Sometimes people have to go through hard times before they find their happy ending. Vincent watched from the doorway, feeling like an intruder in this world of innocence and genuine care. This was the woman he had fallen in love with, compassionate, nurturing, full of light, and he had slowly extinguished that light with his coldness and neglect. Sophie noticed him first. Who's that man, Miss Natalie? He's very tall and handsome, like a prince. Natalie looked up and Vincent saw her entire body stiffen when their eyes met. The warmth in her expression disappeared, replaced by the careful mask he had grown to. Hey, that's my husband. Sophie, your husband. Sophie's eyes widened with excitement. Is he here to take you on a romantic date? My mummy says married people should always go on dates to keep their love strong, out of the mouths of babes. Vincent stepped into the room, kneeling down so he was at eye level with Sophie. Hello, Sophie. You're absolutely right about dates. I've been very bad at taking my wife on dates, but I'm hoping to change that. Sophie giggled, then looked seriously at Natalie. Miss Natalie, you should give him another chance. He brought you flowers, and boys only bring flowers when they're really, really sorry. Natalie glanced at the roses in Vincent's hands, and for a moment, her mask slipped. He saw surprise there, and something else, a flicker of the old vulnerability that used to make his heart race. Sophie, sweetheart, why don't you go show Nurse Janet your beautiful nails? Natalie suggested gently. I need to talk to the prince for a few minutes. After Sophie skipped away, chattering excitedly about her nail art, Natalie stood and faced Vincent. They were alone in the colorful playroom, surrounded by toys and children's artwork, and somehow this felt like the most important boardroom he had ever entered. White roses from the community garden, she said quietly, recognizing the flowers. You remembered. I remember everything, Natalie. I just forgot to show you that I did. He held out the bouquet, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Their fingers brushed, and he felt electricity shoot through him at the simple contact. Vincent, what are you doing here, really? She hugged the flowers to her chest, and he noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring anymore. The absence of it on her finger felt like a fresh wound. I'm fighting for my marriage. For us, for the chance to be the man you fell in love with again. He took a deep breath, knowing this might be his only chance. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I've hurt you in ways that might be impossible to fix. But I also know that what we had was real, and I believe it's still there, buried under all my mistakes. Is it? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm not sure I know how to love you anymore, Vincent. I'm not sure I remember how to trust you with my heart. Then let me remind you. He stepped closer, close enough to smell her familiar perfume, close enough to see the unshed tears in her eyes. Give me 3 months. 3 months to show you that I can be the husband you deserved from the beginning. If after 3 months you still want the divorce, I'll sign the papers without a fight. And what makes you think 3 months can undo 6 years of neglect? Because for the first time in 6 years, you're my only priority. I've stepped back from the company. I've cancelled deals worth millions of dollars. I've done something I never thought I would do. I've chosen you over everything else. She searched his face, looking for deception or manipulation, but Vincent had learned to be completely honest, even when it made him vulnerable. Sophie was right about one thing, he continued. I brought you flowers because I'm really, really sorry, but more than that, I brought them because I love you. Natalie Rivers Kane, I never stopped loving you, even when I forgot how to show it. A tear slipped down her cheek, and Vincent fought the urge to wipe it away, knowing he hadn't earned the right to touch her so intimately yet. 3 months, she said finally, her voice shaking. But I have conditions. Anything. No more 12-hour days. No more cancelled dinners for business calls. No more treating me like a beautiful accessory that you only notice when other people are around. Her voice grew stronger with each word. And if you hurt me again, Vincent, if you make me feel invisible one more time, I'm gone forever. No second chances, no explanations. Forever. He nodded, understanding the gravity of what she was offering him. 3 months to win back your heart. I won't waste a single day. As he walked out of the hospital, Vincent felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The battle for his wife's love would be the most important campaign of his life. And for the first time since building his empire, he was fighting for something that truly mattered. The war for Natalie's heart had begun, and Vincent Kane intended to win it with everything he had.